There's a moment in the Bugatti Chiron rebuild series that perfectly sums up who Bob is. He's sitting at dinner with a woman. Date night. A real one, planned, arranged, the kind you actually look forward to. His phone rings. It's Matt Armstrong. The Chiron radiators need attention before the Miami trip, and Matt needs them done now. Bob's response? He tells his date he can give her 3 more seconds, gets up, grabs a massive box of radiators and his tools, and heads straight to the shop. 3 seconds. That's all date night got. The Bugatti got the rest of the evening. That single moment, documented in Bob's own video, titled Bugatti Radiators Date Night, tells you everything you need to know about this man's dedication to the Chiron project. And it's why the automotive community is now rallying around a single demand. Matt Armstrong needs to get Bob a car. Not as charity, not as a bonus, as recognition for the fact that without Bob, the Bugatti Chiron rebuild simply doesn't happen. That's not a fan's emotional overreaction. That's a cold, accurate assessment of how this project unfolded. And once you understand the full picture, you'll see exactly why the community is right. Setting the scene, what kind of build is this? It's worth stepping back and understanding what the Bugatti Chiron rebuild actually is, because context matters here. The Chiron is not a car. Not in the normal sense of the word. It's a 1,500 horsepower, quad-turbocharged, 8.0-liter W16 monument to engineering excess. It costs around $3 million when new. It has more sensors, more redundant systems, and more proprietary engineering than most aircraft. Bugatti doesn't just build these cars, they control them. They control the parts supply, the service network, the approved repair facilities. If your Chiron needs work, Bugatti's position is simple. It comes to us, or it doesn't get done. That corporate philosophy is the backdrop for everything that happened on Matt's build. When he acquired a salvage-titled Chiron and set out to rebuild it, he wasn't just taking on a complex mechanical project. He was directly challenging a manufacturer that had structured its entire parts and service ecosystem to make exactly this kind of independent rebuild impossible. That's the wall Matt was running into. And that's the wall Bob helped tear down, one repair at a time. Who is Bob, and why does he matter? For anyone who hasn't followed the full Chiron rebuild from the beginning, here's the context you need. Bob is an aluminum and TIG welding specialist, one of the best around. He came into the project when Matt hit what should have been an insurmountable wall, the broken gearbox mounting bracket. When Matt split the Bugatti open and discovered that the rear gearbox mounting bracket was cracked, the project was in serious trouble. This isn't some cosmetic panel or a trim piece. The gearbox mounting bracket is a structural component, a critical piece of cast aluminum that holds the entire drivetrain assembly in position. Lose that bracket, and the car doesn't go back together. Not properly, not safely, not at all. Matt reached out to Bugatti about sourcing a replacement. Their answer was essentially, no. Bugatti refused to sell the part to an independent rebuilder. They weren't interested in making this rebuild possible. A CNC machined replacement was explored as an alternative, but that came with its own serious risks. Sensor positioning on this component has to be exact, and getting it wrong on a 1,500 horsepower car isn't the kind of mistake you walk away from easily. That's when Bob entered the picture. He examined the broken cast aluminum bracket, assessed the damage, and came back with a verdict the project desperately needed to hear. It's reparable. Not just patchable, actually reparable and then some. Bob didn't simply weld the crack back together and call it done. He studied the original casting and noticed something interesting. Bugatti had left structural gaps in the bracket hollow, a common manufacturing cost-saving measure. Bob filled those gaps with additional material during the weld repair, effectively reinforcing the bracket beyond its original factory specification. Let that sink in for a moment. Bob took a broken component that Bugatti refused to replace and returned it stronger than it was when it left the factory. An independent welder, working in his own shop with his own equipment, improved on a part from one of the most exclusive automotive manufacturers on the planet. That's not just competence. That's mastery. The radiators, round 2 with Bugatti's parts policy. The gearbox bracket was the moment Bob proved himself, but it wasn't the only time he saved the build. The radiators were the next significant challenge, and once again, Bugatti's position was that damaged radiators would require complete replacement rather than repair. There are 4 radiators in the Chiron's cooling system, and sourcing new replacements for the damaged units would have represented a serious cost, assuming they could even be sourced at all, given Bugatti's continued resistance to supporting independent rebuilds. The manufacturer's implied message was the same as it had been with the bracket: come to us, buy new parts at our prices, or accept that the car can't be fixed. Bob looked at the radiators, assessed the damage, and confirmed they were reparable. Then he repaired them. 4 for 4. Problem solved. What makes this especially significant isn't just the cost saving, though that matters. It's the consistency of the result. Bob didn't get lucky on one repair and struggle through the others. He assessed each radiator methodically, determined the correct repair approach, and executed it cleanly. This is what genuine expertise looks like in practice. Not flash, not drama, just systematic problem-solving applied to components that a billion-dollar company had effectively written off as beyond independent repair. This is the pattern with Bob throughout the entire Chiron project. Matt hits a wall. The official manufacturer's solution is either unavailable, unaffordable, or both. Bob finds a way through. Every aluminum fabrication challenge, every component Bugatti implied couldn't be fixed outside their own facilities. It went to Bob, and Bob solved it. Every single time. Which brings us back to date night. The radiators needed to be ready before Matt's Miami trip. The timeline was tight, and Bob's phone rang at exactly the wrong moment. Most people, sitting at dinner on a planned date, would tell their client it'll have to wait until morning. Bob told his date she had 3 seconds, grabbed the parts, and went to work. The woman's reaction in the video, captured on camera before Bob left, suggested she was less than thrilled about the situation. That's entirely understandable. Bob's priorities, however, were clear. Bugatti, the nickname that says everything. During the Chiron rebuild, fans started calling Bob Bugatti. The name stuck, and it's easy to understand why, because it captures something real about what Bob actually accomplished on this project. Bugatti's CEO had made public statements suggesting that independent garages were not capable of properly rebuilding Chiron-level vehicles outside of Bugatti's own certified facilities. The implication was clear: this kind of work requires Bugatti's expertise, Bugatti's parts, and Bugatti's oversight. Without all 3 of those things, a rebuilt Chiron isn't a triumph, it's a liability and a risk. Bob's work directly contradicted that narrative at every turn. He repaired components Bugatti's own representatives implied were irreparable without factory support. He reinforced those components beyond their original factory specification. And here's a detail that's worth dwelling on: Bugatti's insurance inspector, during the initial crash assessment on the Chiron, specifically examined that rear gearbox mounting bracket. That tells you something. It suggests Bugatti is well aware this bracket is a known failure point on the car, aware enough that their own inspector is trained to look for it. Yet when Matt needed a replacement, Bugatti wouldn't provide one. Bob welded it back together, made it stronger than it was originally, and moved on to the next problem. That's what Bugatti means. It means an independent specialist, working without factory support, without official approval, and without any of the proprietary tools and data Bugatti claims are necessary, doing what the manufacturer said couldn't be done, and doing it better than the manufacturer apparently did in the first place. The nickname isn't fan hyperbole. It's a straightforward description of what actually happened. The community has spoken. The automotive community has been watching this build closely, and the reaction to Bob's date night video and the broader Chiron series has been overwhelming. The comments across Matt's channel and Bob's own content tell a completely consistent story. One fan put it plainly: can we all agree that Matt never would have been able to rebuild the Bugatti without this legend? You won against Bugatti, Bob. That comment captured the sentiment of thousands of viewers who have followed every stage of the rebuild and understand exactly how many times Bob was the deciding factor between the project continuing and the project ending. Beyond individual comments, multiple petition-style movements have formed in the community, organized efforts demanding that Matt recognize Bob's contribution with something meaningful and proportionate. One comment calling for Matt to build Bob his dream car collected nearly 5,000 likes. Another, simply stating that the day of Bob's car must come, gathered over 7,000 likes. A third, calling for Matt to source and repair a supercar specifically for Bob, pulled another 1,000 likes and sparked a lengthy discussion thread about what car Bob actually deserves and precisely how Matt should make it happen. These aren't casual suggestions left by people who watched one video and moved on. When a comment about rewarding a fabricator on a YouTube build series pulls 7,000 likes, the community is sending a clear, deliberate, and sustained message. The people who have invested their time following every episode of this project understand the value of what Bob contributed. They watched the bracket repair happen in real time. They saw the radiator work get done. They know how close the project came to collapse without him. And they want that contribution acknowledged in a way that actually reflects its scale. The like counts on these comments aren't the interesting part. The interesting part is that these comments exist at all. Viewers of automotive YouTube channels don't normally organize around rewarding the specialists who appear in build series. They watch, they comment, they move on. The fact that Bob's contribution inspired genuine community advocacy, petitions, organized like campaigns, sustained discussion threads, says something real about the impression he made. Why Bob deserves more than just payment. Here's where the conversation gets more serious, because some people will make the reasonable argument that Bob was paid for his work, that he's a professional providing a specialist service, and that extraordinary additional rewards aren't part of any normal professional arrangement. That argument deserves a direct response, because it misses several things about what actually happened on this build. Yes, Bob was compensated for his work. That's not in question. But compensation for a standard professional job and recognition for project-defining contribution are two fundamentally different things, and Bob's involvement in the Chiron rebuild went far beyond a standard client-specialist relationship in ways that matter. First, consider what was actually at stake with each repair. The gearbox bracket job wasn't a routine weld. It was a high-pressure, high-stakes intervention on a multi-million-dollar vehicle where failure wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a project-ending event. Getting the repair wrong, whether through misaligned sensor positioning, poorly distributed stress in the weld, or insufficient structural reinforcement, could have meant catastrophic mechanical failure on a car producing 1,500 horsepower. Bob didn't approach that job cautiously and deliver an adequate result. He studied it, found improvements that weren't even asked for, and delivered something stronger than what the factory originally produced. That is genuinely beyond the scope of what standard professional compensation is meant to reflect. Second, consider the personal investment Bob demonstrated throughout the build. The date night story is the most vivid illustration of this, but it's not an isolated incident. It's the clearest expression of an attitude Bob brought to the entire project. He didn't treat the Chiron like a ticket to be processed and closed. He became invested in its success. He wanted the rebuild to work, wanted it to prove something, and was willing to sacrifice his own time and plans without hesitation when the project needed him. That's not a professional service relationship. That's personal commitment to a shared goal, and it has a value that an invoice doesn't capture. Third, and this is the argument that tends to land hardest, consider what the Chiron rebuild has actually generated and will continue to generate. Matt's channel accumulated millions of views through this series. That content will keep earning revenue for years. The Bugatti itself, once completed and properly documented, will be worth significantly more than a typical salvage title Chiron, precisely because every repair is verified, filmed, and professionally executed. Bob's contributions are a major reason the car reaches completion at all, and a major reason the documentation of its rebuild is credible. His work didn't just fix a car. It created real, lasting, measurable value. Without the gearbox bracket repair, the project ends before it builds any audience momentum. Without the radiator repairs, costs multiply and schedules collapse. Without Bob's consistent, expert solutions to every aluminum fabrication challenge the build presented, Matt is stuck, blocked at multiple points by a manufacturer that has deliberately made independent rebuilds as difficult as possible. Bob didn't just do a job. He was the reason the job got done. What should the car be? The community has been clear that Bob deserves a car. The more interesting question, and the one worth actually thinking through, is what that car should be. Bob is an aluminum and TIG welding specialist with deep fabrication expertise and a clear appreciation for engineering that's been properly thought through. His skills are most at home with vehicles that have complex metalwork, demanding structural requirements, and a build process that genuinely rewards fabrication knowledge. With that profile in mind, a few different directions make sense. A classic aluminum-bodied British or European sports car would be a natural fit. Something like a Jaguar E-Type, an Aston Martin from the DB4 or DB5 generation, or a classic Porsche from the air-cooled era. Cars where the metalwork is central to the restoration rather than incidental to it, where Bob's skills would be engaged at every stage, and where the end result would be something with genuine character and lasting value. These are also cars with a history and depth that tend to resonate with fabricators and engineers who care about how things are actually made, not just how they look when finished. A properly restored E-Type that Bob built himself, with his own hands, using the same skills he brought to the Chiron, that's a car with a story worth telling. Alternatively, Matt could lean into the YouTube content angle and think bigger. Source something dramatic, a crashed Lamborghini, Ferrari, or McLaren with significant structural damage that needs a complete and serious rebuild. Then hand Bob the keys to the project in every sense of the phrase. You decide what it becomes, you lead the fabrication, you set the direction. That approach would be perfect as recognition and perfect as content at the same time. Bob directing his own supercar rebuild, with Matt's platform behind it and the community that already adores him watching every step, would generate enormous engagement. The audience that rallied around Bob during the Chiron series would show up in force for a build where he's the central figure rather than a supporting one. Or maybe the right answer is something that has nothing to do with supercars or prestige marques at all. A vintage race car Bob could actually campaign on track weekends. A classic pickup truck he's always wanted to build into something personal. A project that reflects what Bob cares about outside of work rather than what makes the best YouTube thumbnail. The community wants Bob to get something meaningful, and meaningful is defined by Bob's preferences, not by what looks impressive to an outside audience. The point isn't to prescribe the answer. The point is for Matt to sit down with Bob, ask the question directly, find out what the dream project actually is, the one Bob has always wanted but never had the time or resources to pursue, and then make it happen. That conversation, and what comes out of it, is the starting point for something that would genuinely matter. The bigger picture. There's something worth acknowledging here that goes beyond Bob specifically, because the Chiron rebuild and his role in it represents something the automotive community has strong feelings about. Bugatti built a car of extraordinary engineering complexity and then used that complexity as a gatekeeping mechanism, a way to ensure that damaged Chirons couldn't be properly rebuilt outside their controlled network. Their resistance to supporting independent rebuilds wasn't purely about safety or quality, however much they might frame it that way. It was about protecting their brand narrative, maintaining control over how their cars are perceived and serviced, and, frankly, protecting a parts revenue stream that depends on authorized channels being the only viable option. Bob, working in his own shop without factory support or proprietary tools, dismantled that narrative piece by piece. He didn't do it loudly or dramatically. He just fixed things that weren't supposed to be fixable, improved on things that were supposed to be adequate, and showed up when he was needed without making a production of the sacrifice involved. The automotive community watched all of it and understood exactly what they were seeing. That's why the petitions have thousands of likes. That's why the Bugatti nickname caught on and spread. That's why people are still talking about a date night story long after the radiators were finished and bolted back in. Bob didn't just repair components. He represented a principle that enthusiasts believe in at a deep level, that genuine skill, combined with genuine care, beats corporate gatekeeping. Every time. Without exception. That principle matters to people who work on their own cars and get told by dealers that certain things can't be done outside official channels. It matters to independent shops that compete against manufacturer service networks stacked against them. It matters to anyone who has ever been told that a thing is impossible when what the person saying it actually means is that it's inconvenient for their business model. Bob's work on the Chiron is proof that impossible, in this context, usually just means they'd rather you didn't. Bob is a legend. That's not an exaggeration offered for dramatic effect. It is the accurate, considered assessment of someone who delivered extraordinary results under pressure on a project specifically structured to be impossible for a manufacturer that had clear commercial incentives to see it fail. He repaired a gearbox bracket that Bugatti refused to replace and made it stronger than the factory original. He restored 4 radiators that Bugatti implied needed complete replacement. He solved every aluminum fabrication challenge the build presented, consistently and without fanfare. And when his phone rang during a dinner he had actually been looking forward to, he put down his fork, gave his date 3 seconds, and went to work without hesitation and apparently without resentment. That is someone who is genuinely invested in something beyond the transaction. That's not professional dedication in the ordinary sense. That's personal commitment to being part of something that matters, and being willing to show what that commitment actually looks like when it's tested in a small and human moment. Matt Armstrong should get Bob a car. The community has made its position clear across thousands of likes and sustained discussion threads, and the community is right. Not because Bob needs the charity, and not because it would make good content, though it absolutely would, but because the contribution was real, the sacrifice was real, and recognizing it properly is simply the right thing to do. Find out what Bob actually wants. The project he's always imagined but never had the resources to start. The car that's been in the back of his mind for years. Then make it happen. Document it properly. Let Bob lead it. Let the community that has already decided this man is a legend watch him build something entirely for himself, on his own terms, for once. The Chiron runs because Bob made it possible. It's time to give him something that runs because Matt made it possible, as a genuine thank you to the man who proved that the best fabricators in the world don't work in Molsheim. Sometimes they work in a shop that answers the phone on date night.